Hi everyone! Did you know if we exposed to ultraviolet radiation, it can give bad impact to us? The answer is yes. Ultraviolet radiation is one of the types of exposure that causes harm to humans. There are three types of UV, which are UVA, UVB, and UVC. But UVC is completely filtered by atmosphere and doesn't reach the Earth's surface. Meanwhile, most solar UVB is filtered by atmosphere and cannot penetrate beyond superficial skin layers. UVA can penetrate into deeper layers of skin and can cause harm to our body. First and foremost, UV radiation may cause eye damage such as photokeratitis, photoconjunctivitis, pterygium cataract, especially cortical cataract, age-related macular degeneration, and ocular malignancies. UVA and UVB rays can cause the most damage to our eyes. But how is it happened? For your information, our eyes are partially protected from sunlight by the brow ridges. Before reaching our retina, reflected UVR is filtered by cornea, melanin in iris, aqueous humor, and the lens. UV light damages cells in eyes, particularly on retina. It can damage mitochondrial DNA in the macular region of the neuroretina and the retinal pigment epithelium, causing oxidative damage. We can develop the equivalent of a sunburn on our eyes if we spend too much time in direct sunlight, which can damage very sensitive components of our eyes. We can get chronic vision impairment or blindness if we regularly injure these tissues. UVR promotes inflammatory cytokines and transcription factors in the eye. When the eye is exposed to ultraviolet rays for an extended period of time, it might develop cancers such as ocular melanoma. The best way we can do to protect our eyes is to get the right pair of sunglasses and wear them in outdoor.
Next, UV ray will weaken body's immune system. A defective immunological response will be caused by UV radiation that affect the skin first and later the entire body, which is known as UV-induced immunosuppression. Immunosuppression is a condition in which the immune system weakens and ability to fight infection and other disorders diminish. Other than that, ultraviolet radiation, especially ultraviolet B radiation, causes a generation of molecules like peptide activating factor, histamine, prostaglandin E2, where these substances produce suppressor T cells, which is a type of immune cell that inhibit the function of other types of lymphocytes, which is in order to prevent the immune system from becoming overly active. As a result, this can lead to neutrophil-mediated inflammation. In addition, DNA will absorb UV light directly, which can lead to DNA damage. These modifications to DNA affect the production of many immune-related chemicals. These chemicals, in turn, alter the systemic immune responses, encouraging deficiency in cellular immunity. Lastly, due to defective immune system, it will cause photosensitivity, skin disease, and other immune-related conditions. So, what is photosensitivity? Photosensitivity, which is also known as sun allergy, is an immune reaction provoked by sunshine. It has two types, which is phototoxic and photoallergic. Phototoxic reaction will show sunburn and rash response, while photoallergic reaction happens when respond and show rash, blister, red pimples, to even bleeding lesions. As a result, photosensitivity weakens your natural defenses and increases your vulnerability to solar damage.
So, sunburn, inflammation, and tanning have been examples of the short-term effects of UV on human skin. So, first we are going to address sunburn inflammation or skin redness. Erythema is the medical term for it. First and foremost, particularly in people with fair skin, sunburn erythema was the most visible and well-known acute cutaneous response to UV exposure. So, how did the redness appear? It is caused by vasodilation or the widening of cutaneous blood vessel, which results in skin redness. redness, thickening of the stratum corneum, epidermis and dermis, as well as intercellular and perivascular swelling or edema and perivascular infiltration are all histological changes that occur after UV irradiation. Furthermore, genetics also plays a significant role in determining individual erythemal and tanning response of human skin. In addition, tanning or increased melanogenesis was one of the most common acute clinical skin effects of UV irradiation on normal human skin following by sunburn inflammation. UVB and UVA irradiation both cause delayed tanning (DT) after UV exposure. So what are the differences between UVB and UVA radiation? UVA, or we call it as ultraviolet A, has much longer wavelength and is linked to skin aging, whereas UVB, ultraviolet B, has a shorter wavelength and is linked to skin burn. We have already talked about short-term effects, so now we'll be discussing about the long-term effects of UV on the skin. So the long-term effects in this case were malignant melanoma. The term malignant was used to describe cancer in which cells begin to divide abnormally and attack nearby tissues in our body. And melanoma itself is a form of skin cancer. To begin, in nearly every nation where the data is accessible, it has been expressed that the frequency and mortality rates of malignant melanoma have been rising. Furthermore, skin color and skin sensitivity to UV exposure have been reported to be the most important constitutional risk factor for melanoma. For example, fair-skinned people who burn only and never tan after exposure to sunlight have higher incidence of melanoma. Within the formation of melanoma, which may happen after a long time afterwards, a history of exposure to large doses of sufficient sunlight to cause sunburn in childhood is particularly vital. Moreover, some research has linked the relationship of sunburn in adulthood to a higher risk of melanoma, with recreational activity being one of the causes.
Moreover, solar UVR exposure also can cause cutaneous malignant melanoma on the skin. Cutaneous malignant melanoma is one type of skin cancer. The evidence associating solar UV exposure to melanoma risk is notable in that the elevated relative risk associated with exposure, even severe exposure, have been rather slow. Solar UV radiation is the primary environmental risk factor, and individual susceptibility, as evidenced by pigmentation and sensitivity, is the primary moderator of the effect of this exposure. These results have the potential to be significant since they imply the connection of susceptibility factors such as skin color, sensitivity, nervous density, and freckling with melanoma, and even the degree of solar exposure required for malignancy evolution may differ between the pathways. If this is the case, so risk ratios linked with both susceptibility variables and solar exposure may actually grow when etiologically distinct forms of the disease can be disaggregated. In summary, descriptive data show that melanoma rates are much greater among white people in high sunlight areas than in similar groups in low sunlight areas. Parkin et al. Suggesting a population-level influence of solar UV. According to Dr. Azura Muhammad Afandi, only 5.4% of patients who visited the dermatology clinic at Hospital Kuala Lumpur experienced this disease. Even though cutaneous malignant melanoma is not common in Malaysia, remember that prevention is better than cure. So, wear your sunscreen and avoid from exposed too long to the sun. In addition, some adverse effects from a number of autoimmune diseases appear to be potentiated by sunlight exposure. Autoimmune disease occur when the immune system attacks its own tissue. As a result, UV radiation may play a role in the formation of dermatomyositis, an inflammatory illness marked by a rash on the skin followed by a gradual muscle weakening. An unexpected finding is that skin exposure to ultraviolet light can worsen clinical symptoms in autoimmune disorder such as lupus. A previous study has found that sunlight can cause local skin inflammation, systemic flares, and also renal damage in up to 80% of lupus patients. The underlying mechanism that drive this process are still unknown. UVB activates a variety of viruses, including a human papilloma virus, possibly due to its non-suppressive effect on cellular immunological activity. Mostly rates of sarcoma in situ, cervical epithelial dysplasia, and HPV infection were all positively linked with monthly sunlight fluency. Other researchers has found that using sunscreen by individuals with systemic lupus erythematosus (SLE) lowers renal involvement, thrombocytopenia, and also hospitalization. Villa et al. Implying that limiting UVB exposure will reduce disease severity. So in conclusion, ultraviolet radiation exposure can affect humans physically, also biologically, like cutaneous malignant melanoma and autoimmune disease.
Following that, prolonged sun exposure will cause photoaging, will damage the skin. According to the Leica et al. 1995, UVR will causes a damaged collagen fiber network. The damage causes increased production of abdominal elastin. Besides that, based on reports said et al., exposure to the sun also damage skin, leading to the increased lysosome staining of abdominal elastic fiber. Therefore, a change occurs in collagen composition. For example, an increase in the collagen 3 or the collagen 1 ratio is also accompanied by a loss of collagen in the skin that has undergone ethnic injury. In most cases, the clinical signs are characterized as photoaged skin, including the fine and loose wrinkles, looseness, skin appearance, frequent pigmentation reflected by lentiginosis, brittleness, delay wound healing, and telangiectasia. To conclude, since elastin and collagen fiber provide skin with firmness and durability, the photoaging process, depression of their normal arrangement, makes skin appear older. Last but not least, ultraviolet radiation exposure will increase the risk of the skin cancer. Skin cancer results from DNA damage and genetic abnormalities both on by UVR. According to the term of clinical data, Black et al. 1997, there is compelling evidence that exposure to the sunlight directly contributes to the development of the skin melanosis, particularly non-melanoma skin cancer, squamous cell carcinoma, and basal cell carcinoma. In general, the skin area most frequently exposed to the UVR are heads, necks, arms, and hands, where this cancer most commonly occur. Broadly speaking, unlike UVB which directly impact DNA, UVA toxicity mainly depend on indirect mechanism in which reactive oxygen species are generated through the activation of endogenous photosynthesis present in the skin, triggering the genotoxic effects. Moreover, there has been an increase in evidence that oxidative damage can be generated in culture cells and even in the skin biopsy sample. Various publications have discussed how UVA radiation can cause temporary DNA breakage. In a nutshell, skin cancer may develop if enough DNA damage accumulates over time and cells begin to grow uncontrollably.
In conclusion, ultraviolet radiation has a number of negative effects on the human body, including skin, immune system, and eyes. That's all from us. Thank you!